Would you please give a massive, warm welcome to Miss Pamela Laurion. Come on up, Pamela. We met Pamela, stand over here, get in the camera here. We met Pamela, how many years ago now?
About 2.5.
2.5 years ago, and we just clicked it right away. And the research, the knowledge that this lady has is awesome. And when I say you're going to enjoy this day, you are going to enjoy this day.
For those of you I saw 2 years ago at Sukkot, I'm so good to see you again. And those who I didn't see, I hope you're going to be just as excited to hear what I have to say as it is for me to tell it. My name is Pamela Laurion, and I'm from Delaware, and I attend a Messianic Torah Observant Fellowship in Delaware, and I often teach there. I'm a self-taught Hebrew student who teaches basic Hebrew and Hebrew studies in our area. And about 15 years ago, I started learning the ancient scripts and really studied them. And 5.5 years ago, my husband passed away. We'd been married for 36 years, had come to Torah together, and we, 3 children, 5 grandchildren. And after he passed away, I decided I wanted to go to Israel. So my friend and I planned for 2 years for a trip to Israel. And our hope was that we could go to Saudi Arabia, to the real Jabal laws. And knowing that that just wasn't going to happen because the visa restrictions in Saudi had been shut down for centuries. It was very difficult to get in. You had to get in under a work visa, so on and so forth. So we planned a trip through Egypt, Jordan, and Israel. We were gone a month and a half, and on the day that we returned from Israel, the king of Saudi Arabia lifted the visa restrictions. And when I got home, about 2 weeks later, it hit the news. It hit Yahoo News, Fox News. And so I ended up calling the company that was sponsoring this expedition and started talking to a lady that was there on the other end of the line, and we talked for several hours. And the next thing I knew, I had an invitation to join the second team that was going the following February. So I was able to take my grandson and go to Jabal Laws. It was the second team to ever go. I was able to see the mountain and all the other sites that are there. I was there to read the inscriptions that I had studied for years. Yes, anything?
Can you tell us Jabal Laws? What is that?
Okay, Jabal Laws is the, thank you, is the real Mount Sinai. In the Sinai Peninsula, there's a monastery called St. Catherine's, and it's down at the southern end of the tip. And it was deemed the Mount Sinai, the original Mount Sinai, by St. Catherine, Constantine's mom, and it was based on not one shred of archaeological evidence. But through the endeavors of Ron Wyatt, Bob Carnook, the Coldwells, they would sneak into Saudi Arabia, got arrested, got jailed, life was threatened, released, but the word of this mountain in northwest Saudi Arabia came to be known, and the archaeological evidence that's there. When Yeshua said, "These rocks cry out," we meant what he said. So, Joshua, that's not the one. So, the picture's kind of distorted because I do everything on Apple, and this one went to a PDF. So, but this is a split rock at Horeb that's near the mountain. So this is my journey to Saudi Arabia, to the mountain, what I saw. I was a team of 18 people. I had movie producers, 2 Everest climbers, professional photographers, several pastors, and I was there. I was the one that was reading the ancient inscriptions that are there. I work with, and I'm affiliated with an organization called the Doubting Thomas Research Foundation. And this foundation highlights the archaeological evidence of Noah's Ark in Turkey and also Saudi Arabia as well. So Steve will also be working and going with Doubting Thomas. Some of the other projects that I've been involved in came about this year. I retired December 31st from my fake job, and I was called to be on a team of 28 people worldwide. It's the B'nai Amunah Project, which they have found 2,000 transcripts, scrolls from the Vatican, India, London, Paris, Germany, Northern Italy, of the New Testament written in Hebrew. And because I had studied a lot of the fonts and the scripts, they asked me to be on the translating and transcribing team. So at this time, I'm working officially on the Neophiti 33. I'm heading that team project to translate the book of Revelation, and then I'll go back and start with the book of Acts and go through. But it's very difficult. The fonts are difficult. And I'll show you just a little. I have permission to share just little snippets of it with you as we go along. But I am translating the New Testament from the Hebrew into modern day Hebrew, and then we'll do an interlinear script for your enjoyment. And there are some surprises. So it's exciting. And it's amazing to be able to look at these scripts for the first time and try to read them and decipher them. The Bible says that Mount Sinai is located in Arabia. The Sinai Peninsula is not in Arabia. It never has been. And twice I found these two in Galatians and Genesis, that Sinai is located in Arabia. So it's got to be there. And the area to this day is still called Midian. And so we know that's where Moses went. That's what the scripture says. So the area we're talking about is this area right here. And they came across, Moses brought the Israelites across the northern part of Sinai and started to go up. And God said, no, bring them down. And they got entangled in a wadi here. It's a very circuitous wadi. And there they were entangled in the mountains. They crossed at a place called Nuweiba Beach. And I have also visited that site of Egypt. This is all Egypt land. But remember this, as you look at this map, the promised land is all the way to the great river Nile.
Amen.
Don't be constrained in your thoughts of the promised land being just what Israel is today. So it goes all the way to the great river Nile. So they crossed here on Nuweiba Beach, and that's where you're going to want to find the real Mount Sinai. It is the tallest mountain in the area, and it is on a range called Jabal el-Lawz. El-Lawz means in Hebrew, or I'm sorry, in Arabic, it means almonds. And it's kind of funny that Aaron's budding staff was bloomed almonds. So there are almond trees in the area. So it fits that description. Also, he said it's on the backside of a desert. So this Jabal el-Lawz mountain range actually has a backside and a side that faces the sea. Okay, on the left is Ron Wyatt. He's the first one that snuck into Saudi Arabia, risked his life, but slowly the photographs managed to get some photographs out. Bob Cornute went in and also got shot at, wrote a book on it called The Gold of Exodus, I would recommend. And he actually was on the third expeditionary team that went to Saudi Arabia. So he was right behind me, and then COVID hit. They shut it down. So after Bob Cornute went, there was a family in Saudi Arabia called the Caldwells, and they were there on the petroleum work visas. They had children, and they started looking for the mountain. And there they went. And they found it. They found Ron Wyatt's discovery, Bob Kornuk's discovery, and friends of theirs were on my team when I went. So it was kind of exciting. But these are amateur archaeologists, self-taught like me, and just brave people, just very brave people. So I'm grateful for their research that they did. So how did I get there? God had to change the heart of a king. He changed the visa restrictions. The king of Saudi Arabia lifted them, and 4 months later I found myself on a plane to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia with my 12-year-old grandson, who's the only child on the trip. But my purpose in bringing him, and I was told I was crazy, I was told I was out of my mind. My family, you know, they were just like, she's gone and lost it. My daughter, when I asked her to bring her son to Saudi Arabia, she says, you are crazy, you are out of your mind. But 4 months later, we were on a plane, and my goal was to honor the commandment of Passover, of tell your children, to tell their children, to tell their children, for all generations, what your Father has done for you here. And I knew that if he could put his hands on the split rock, if he could sit on the pillars of Moses, if he could stand on the altar of the golden calf, he would never deny what the Father had done. He couldn't. There's no way you can. I had been through Egypt. I went down the canal that Joseph built. I went to see the paddle wheel that pushed the water into Egypt from the Nile and created 1 million arable acres. I did this all on the trip before. I went to St. Catherine's Monastery in the middle there. There's not one shed, one little bit of any archaeological evidence at this monastery. It's historically significant. They have a great library there, but it's not Mount Sinai. In fact, they have what they claim is a burning bush, but right beside it is a fire extinguisher. So it's just, it doesn't fit the narrative. And then from there, we went up to Nueva Beach, where you can see the Pillar of Solomon. These are all my pictures. And the Wadi Watir, where the pillar of fire stood and blocked the Egyptians from entering onto the beach and slaughtering the Israelites. I found myself in just a few months returning to the Middle East, which was probably more exciting for me. But both trips were really great. So my grandson Alden on the left, he's 12 years old, and we landed in Riyadh. And of course I have to do the grandma thing and take the picture and put him in the presentation, because that's what grandmas do. So, but it did change his life, and you're gonna hear how in just a little bit. So our first stop was at a place called Al-Bad. And Al-Bad is a small little Arabian town on the front side of the desert by the sea. And in this place is where Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, lived. He was the high priest of Midian. Even in Saudi Arabia today, the Bedouins there and the residents there still honor Jethro. His Hebrew or his Arabic name is Shayub, so you won't find it that way in Hebrew, but that is his name. And we know that these pictures are his houses, and we know that because they are the best houses in the area, and the high priest of Midian would live there. But there has to be a well. Is there a well? Yes. Right next to the houses of Jethro is a beautiful ancient well, deep well, that they've now put a fence around, and there's actually steps that go down into the well. And this is the well where Moses met his wife Zipporah and fought off some of the Amalekites for them. And he shepherded in this town for 40 years. So this is actually the well of Moses. And many people in Saudi Arabia, when they get a marriage proposal, they will bring their loved one to this place and propose to them, even to this day. And this is inside the well here. And from the well, you can see way in the background, it's hard to see with the lighting, but it is there, the shadow of Jabal Makla, the burnt mountain. That's the official name of the burnt mountain. The mountain range is Jabal Alaz. So our next place is Elam. We follow the Exodus journey, and there is an Elam. And to this day, there are 12 wells. We were in four-wheel drive, and our team went out there, looked at this area. This is a Doubting Thomas Research Foundation picture. A lot of these pictures are my own, but today you're going to see some things that nobody else has seen. They're about a month and a half old. My friend Logan and Ryan went about a month and a half ago, and they sent me some things to share with you guys that have not even been published yet. So you will be the first to see some of these inscriptions and things that you're going to see today. Anyway, this is Elam. There's lots of palm trees. And so you will find 12 wells there. This is my grandson Alden next to a modern marker on one of the wells. These modern markers are really, really important. They locate the wells. They are modern. They're cement markers. What the Bedouins are doing are pulling up as we speak. This is where a well was. They're pulling up the markers to cause the wells to disappear. So this is a big concern. Our team is really trying to work tirelessly to get back to Saudi Arabia to document everything that we can. Israel can't do it. The PhDs have not even accepted this is Mount Sinai yet. So it's us. And Steve is going to be on the team now. So it's us. We have to document these things and make sure they're cataloged, GPSed, and recorded for prosperity's sake, for the children of Israel. So they have pulled up the cement marker here. You can see it, but there are 12 wells there. And more than 70 palms at this point. So
Why are the Bedouins pulling them up?
to hide the wells. They don't want, this is a Bedouin society, and they don't want people coming in. And sometimes you're shot at, so.
I'm not going.
You're going. Ryan's been shot at, and the Saudi government has worked about getting the tourism up. They're building a new city in the area called Neom that will be, 3 times the size of New York City. And when I was there, the infrastructure was being laid, telephone lines, plumbing, that kind of thing along the highways, roads, whatnot, through this desert. And so they really don't care about Mount Sinai. And, but it's been the Father's mountain. And the miracle of this mountain, the modern day miracle of this mountain, is that it exists untouched to this day. This is another marker in Elam. This is the wadi that leads into Elam. We four-wheel drived it. We had about 5 four-wheel drive vehicles. Every day we would trek it into the desert trek, and this type of wadi was a very, very common sight and a very common way to travel into the backside of the desert. I put this place in because it's not a great picture, but it's a great picture to tell you what I'm seeing. God told Moses, Yah told Moses to go to the rock at Horeb. This was not a little rock. It was a well-known marker to Moses. Go to the rock at Horeb. So Moses knew what this rock was. And it had to be a significant marker. Where I'm standing, taking this picture, this area right here is the valley of Rephidim. And this ledge, this is the split rock here, this ledge that goes back behind the split rock is riddled. I mean riddled with inscriptions, petroglyphs, pictographs, and we'll take a look at those in a little bit. Rephidim means, in Hebrew, it means place of rest. So this is where the Amalekites came. And Bedouin culture has always been, they would move to the place of water. Well, if you have a split rock, gushing water for 1 million people, the Amalekites are going to come and want to claim that water. That was typical of that day, and often battles would be fought around the watering hole. So this was no different, and it matches, the battle being here matches the biblical narrative. This ledge almost divides this valley in two. It's almost splits it. So you can actually, when you're up on it, you can actually see Moses lifting his arms and letting his arms down, and they would win, they would lose, and then they won the battle, but the record they left up there is pretty phenomenal. So I took a picture of this so that you can see that this place means place of rest and how big this place is, and you'll see a little bit more of it in just a second. But you can see the split rock here as we're coming upon it. So this is the split rock at Horeb. It is quite magnificent. The Caldwells discovered this. It is a major marker in this area. This is another one. The rock is split all the way through. It didn't just have a little crack. This thing was split open. At the bottom of the hill, the rocks that come down from this, it's on a 100-foot ledge, are smoothed out from the water and have water erosion at the bottom. There's actually granite, natural-made granite gullies that have helped to channel the water. You can see the water erosion. It's pretty phenomenal. This right here is my grandson. So it's about 80 feet, I would say. It's a major structure. So this rock, when split, meant business. And to be able to stand there on this place, and of course I'm gathering rocks. Everywhere I went, I gathered rocks, I marked my rocks. I didn't care about spending any souvenir money. I wanted rocks, and I was praying, oh God, let me get home with my rocks. So this is one of my favorite pictures because it gives a good perspective of how big this thing was and how grand this miracle was and how big the provision of the Father was. And there are petroglyphs and pictographs along this split rock, but by the time we had gotten there, some of those inscriptions had been damaged and defaced. So we have to get there, and we have to get these things recorded and GPS. So this is a view from inside the split rock, looking out. And there he is, but he's in the split rock. Probably, other than the Caldwell children, the only child to ever do this for 3,500 years. And these are the gullies that I talked about. They come down from this split rock that help channel the water. These are granite things. I asked Dr. Glenn Fritz what these were. They're just the natural structure of granite. This is Rephidim. I'm actually standing on the ledge of that behind the split rock, and you can see where the Battle of the Amalekites took place. So this is the view that you get. This ledge I'm standing on goes out this way, and it almost divides this whole thing in half. So what did I find back there? So nobody knows why I'm there. Nobody knows on my team. You know, we didn't really share a lot when we first got there about what we were called to do. But I knew what I was called to do, and when I got behind the split rock, I knew what I had to do. So I ended up pulling out all my charts, my letter charts, my pictograph charts, my ancient Hebrew charts. And they were like, what is that? I said, I'm reading these inscriptions. So everybody got really excited, and they helped me tremendously with finding some of the inscriptions. So there are 60 known inscription sites in and around Jabal Law's mountain range. 155 known inscriptions, but that's Logan and Ryan found even more last month. They didn't give me a number, so I didn't change it, but there are more. And there's thousands of inscriptions throughout Saudi Arabia. So what do these inscriptions look like? It doesn't say Moses was here. It doesn't say that. But it's close. I have a theory that I've shared with Dr. Miles Jones on reading these inscriptions. This is called pictographic Hebrew. These are 2 Hebrew letters, same letter. When you read ancient Hebrew, and it's even common to this day in modern day Hebrew, every letter has a meaning. Out of the 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, if you know the meanings of those letters, it will tell you what the word means. For example, the word father is Aleph Beit, Aleph. And the Aleph means strong, number 1, the Beit means house. So the father, the definition of father is the strength of the house. You can do this with almost any Hebrew word. The only other language I think that really even compares to it is the language of chemicals. You know, when I say to you H2O, everybody knows what it means, everybody knows what it's made of, everybody knows how it's going to react. Hebrew's the same way. So if you know your letters, 22 letters, and you know what they mean, you can not only spell a word, you don't need a dictionary, you don't need a thesaurus, you don't need to be a high priest in Egypt or Pharaoh himself, who are the only ones who could read hieroglyphics. I believe that's why the Israelites prospered, the Hebrews prospered and grew in Egypt, even under slavery, because they were literate. The general population of Egypt was not. And Egypt, the people of Egypt got scared. I believe that's why Joseph went from being a prisoner in a jail cell to second in command of Egypt in one day. Certainly by the hand of the Almighty. But when Pharaoh asked him, what should we do? Joseph laid out his plan in a very literate manner and was very successful with it. The word of the Lord had come to Abraham, the word of the Lord had come to Moses, and the word of the Lord had come to Joseph several times in Potiphar's house and in the jail. So that word is Debar. I think the Father gave his language to his people. So this right here is the Hebrew letter Kaf. There's 2 of them, and it means the sole of the foot, cupping of the palm of the hand. These 3 hash marks are located next to the next picture, the sole of the foot. Everywhere the Israelites went, they remembered the promise made to Abraham. Wherever the sole of your foot shall be, that land I will give you. And what they did all over Saudi Arabia was mark through these footprints. This one is so blatant. You can see the toe strap and the side straps. And this is another one with the footprints and the coughs. They're literally telling you this is the place of the sole of the foot. This is where we've been. My theory in reading pictograph is my theory. I come up with it, and I talked with Dr. Jones about it, and it's like reading ancient emojis. If I said to you, I heart NY, you would know what that means. And Hebrew, ancient pictographic Hebrew is hard to read. The letters are what I call independently transforming. They transform at different rates. They don't transfer altogether. A word doesn't look the same as it did, it just has different ages of letters in it. For example, the Yud, He, Vav, He, the tetragrammaton, When you get into the Promised Land at Joshua's altar, they just found Yah's name at Joshua's altar. The hay is different than what it was just 40 years earlier in the Sinai. And although the others are the same, that letter transformed independently of the others. So it's difficult to read. And in the ancient pictographic Hebrew, the linear structure of a sentence didn't develop until later, until after they got into the land. So reading some of these inscriptions is a little hard. But if you read them like ancient emojis, it's not so hard. And they make sense, and they fit the area. Here, you see a battle, or it could be a hunting scene. These are petroglyphs. I thought at first it was a battle because they're shooting arrows, but there's deer and antelope and ibex there, and I don't think it's a fighting scene. I think it's a hunting scene, although there's really not anything in that area at all. It's just really not. You're in the desert. And this one is a great inscription. I deciphered this inscription, and it means the covenant, start from right to left, the covenant of the sole of the foot, behold the path. It actually works out to a Hebrew word, takad, and it means behold the path. These are from Doubting Thomas. I'm not sure what this says, but I think I'm going to tell you what it says. So Ryan told me, and I think it means there is a mother is weeping for the death of her child. This one is a very difficult one to read. One right there and right there. I haven't sat down long enough to decipher these, so that's another Sabbath or 2 or 4 or 10 to decipher these. So, but really exciting. So I can sit down and work through them, and it takes a while. Right at the southern end of Jabal Allah's mountain range is the oldest menorah known to man. Right there. And with the inscriptions, you'll see a tav here, a gimel, another tav. This is a hay right here. And again, I haven't deciphered these. These were taken by Dr. Kim, who was the personal physician to the king of Saudi Arabia. He went up here and took them. So this menorah is really, really precious, but it's gone. It's been vandalized. And Yah has provided photographs. But that is a necessity. I cannot stress that enough, of getting to Saudi Arabia and getting these documented, photographed, GPS'd. It's absolutely essential. This is brand new. My friend Logan found this inscription, and it was found behind the split rock. And I will read it for you. I did decipher this one was easier to do. The first letter here is an ayin, it means to see. The second letter is a mem, and the third letter is a het. The mem means water, and the het means divide. So it says, see where the waters divide. You're the first to see this one. If you use my theory, that's what it says when you use it. So I was thrilled to death. This is another inscription that Logan took. What I really liked about this inscription, this is a great hay. I think this is a bait. I think this is an ayin, but over here, right here, that's a tav. The Hebrew letter tav means covenant or cross, and it is not a Babylonian symbol. It is a Hebrew symbol, has always been a Hebrew symbol. There's a really good book called The Ancient Jewish Cross, and it talks about this particular letter and the transformation of this letter throughout the centuries. And this letter never changed. It would not change. The other letters would transform and they would develop in other cultures. This one never did, because it always means a place to look for it. And we even use it today on pirate maps in modern times. X, almost like a thing X marks the spot. People even use it to sign their agreements. If they can't write their name, they sign an X or a cross to supplement their name. So it really means to look at something, to mark the spot, to look there for something in the covenant. So that's what you're to look for. This letter didn't change from here till right after Messiah was crucified and risen. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, they realized that as they watched the Messiah die on the cross, they knew what that meant, and they turned around and they made it into a box-style Tav. It's the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and that letter we still have today. The letters transformed. The Catholic priest butchered them. But this letter stayed the same, and it's consistent with in nature up until the time of the death and resurrection of Messiah. So I'm working on a Hebrew manuscript. I told you get to see little bits and pieces. This one, you want some controversy. We'll give you some controversy here. This is from a document that I'm doing right now. It's called the Neofiti 33. It was submitted to the Vatican in 1616 after looking at 700 fonts, 1,000 fonts. I never counted them, but there was months of looking. This is a 15th century Hebrew rabbinic font. It is the Yud He Vav He with the vowel points. Written in 1500 and the 1500s, and you'll find the Tetragrammaton with the vowel points there. There's a little controversy, but what did the Catholic, I actually told Dr. Jones this is written by a Catholic priest who knew Hebrew, who was possibly trying to witness to Jewish converts. And not only was it written by one person, it was written by many. So far through the book of Revelation, I found 4 writers, distinct writers in this document. It's a very difficult document to read because once you get used to what your letters are, then it changes on you. You've got a new writer and you have to start all over again. So I do have a team that works with me that corrects my mistakes, because there's always mistakes. But this document is a very, very, very messy document. But the B'nai Emunah project asked me to look at it and see what I could do with it. So I'm working with it. I'm on chapter 5 of Revelation, so I'm getting better as the months go by. But this one comes from the Gaster 1616. It is a true Hebrew font. A true Hebrew scribe wrote this document. It's much neater. There's no scratch marks in it. A little bleed through on the back. We have a lot of team meetings to talk about some of the transcribing and translating work we're doing. We have a team of about 28 worldwide. I have a team of 5 that's working on the Neofiti. The others are working on the Gaster and the Cochin documents found in India. And we work in pairs so that I actually have 5 on this particular document. But the pair work goes, when you transcribe, we really take it seriously that we want to write down what is there, not what we think it is. You write down what you, and then you send it to your partner, and they correct it. And then it's sent off to another team to correct, compare to the modern day texts of, English texts of the Bible. And they're developing an interlinear document for these Hebrew texts. So within the next few years, you're going to see this, and it will, we already have the Shem Tov Matthew that's there. The book of Jude is complete, and the book of Revelation is just about done. The Neofiti, they asked me to look at it because nobody could read it. So, and I was like, what do you think I can read it? I was like, what it is. But it's a great honor. I'm working with people from Israel, Holland, Australia, Mexico, Belize. So we have our midnight meetings of translating because we're all on different time things. So it's an exciting project, and I want you guys to look forward to seeing this document come out in the next few years. But it's taking time, it really is. So our next stop after the Split Rock is Jabal Makla. Jabal Makla means in Arabic, burnt mountain. And you can see Jabal Makla in the background. It's in the background there. And the top of the mountain is burnt. And so we had to park our Jeeps a little further away from the mountain and walk up to the base of the mountain. And being grandma with a grandson, this child just goes. You went over rocks, you went over through the stream that came down beside Moses' altar, and I thought, no Hebrew woman in her right mind would carry a calf over this rocks to this altar area. She'd be out of her mind. She'd be crazy. But they did. And I also thought of Elijah. So this place has to have a cave, which it does for Elijah. And when Elijah was here, an earthquake came and the rocks settled in the path. That's what I was climbing over. So this is what it looks like when you're standing far away. This is my friend Ryan. He's head of Doubting Thomas Research Foundation. I was with him when I went. And there's Jabal Makla, the burnt mountain. This right here is the Valley of the 70, the plain of the 70, where the elders. So the plain of the elders were left here, and Moses continued to ascend. This mountain is a 4-hour climb to the top. I did not climb it. They wouldn't let me climb it. We had 2 Everest climbers climb this mountain and bring me back a burnt rock from the top of the mountain. They got sick, and we had to send a rescue team up to get them. So it is a dangerous climb. My friend Luis went with them, made it as far as Elijah's cave. When you went into Elijah's cave, there was a cobra sitting in the front of the cave. So back down the mountain he came. So God bless Luis. So the fire and smoke descended on top of this mountain. They don't know, geologists don't know what caused this look on the top of the mountain. So our good buddies who climbed this mountain got our rocks for us. And some of those rocks were sent to the University of Texas, and now some of them are in London and some of them are in Jerusalem. And they're studying these rocks. They don't understand what has caused the burnt on the outside of the mountain. But we do. So there is a place at the top of the mountain. Keith Chauncey, who was there, brought my rock back for me. He said there is a place at the very top of the mountain that is a crystal, like quartzy blue rock in a bluish hue. He said it's there. So this is also the tallest mountain in the entire place of Midian. On the way to the altar area, this is a really important petroglyph. I told Ryan what it meant. Whenever you see anything in a petroglyph with arms raised, it means worship. You have three worshiping, and one with the arms down, leading a bull or a calf along the path. So really what this petroglyph is doing is marking the path to the altar, to worship at the altar. So it's very, very, very important. And this is the altar area, right where it should be, at the base, the very base of the mountain. And these are the animal chutes that the sacrifices were brought up in. They're curved, or they're angled. And there's a reason for the angling. Any of you Western farmer ranchers, but when you slaughter animals, if the animals see the slaughter, they get spooked, and it becomes very chaotic. So what they will do with the corrals is they will turn the corral so the animal doesn't see until the last minute. This is typical. So you can see the angled area here, and then Moses' altar right here. We know this is a Hebrew altar. They're the only ancient society of that time that did this. They never used cut stone. This is all unhewn stone. The whole thing. So we know it's Hebrew. They're the only society that did that. And I'm standing actually on the altar, looking down the animal chutes and taking a picture. Now the Saudi police were with us and escorted us up here. One of the reasons I believe I was sent, in part, my grandfather is part Jewish. Well, he's all Jewish, but I'm part Jewish. I believe he sent me to this area to say the Aaronic benediction and put his name over this land, stand on the altar, do it, and claim that land and that people back for him. So while my teammates distracted the Saudi police, they told me to go up on the altar, which I did. I said the Aaronic benediction for the first time in Hebrew and put the name of God over that area again. So my friend Luis, who got to Elijah's cave, did the Shema. So we got it covered, you guys. So, but you can see it's unhewn stone. The curvature of the corralling, and right beside here is a stream that has to go alongside the altar area for sacrifices. There has to be a stream to do the animal sacrifices, and there is a dried up stream bed there. So it does, and it actually does flow at certain times of the year. And the next thing this place is going to have 12 pillars, one for each tribe. Well, there's not quite 12 pillars left, maybe because Pam brought parts of the pillars back in her suitcase with her. But you'll see the white pillars, one for each tribe, are still there. Up on this area at the other side of this mountain, above the stream, there's actually a vein of rock in the side of this mountain that's white marble. So these pillars are fashioned from that white marble, and God told Moses to put a pillar, one for each tribe. So the stream bed comes down in here. So this picture was taken by Dada and Thomas. They're standing in the cave of Elijah, and you can see the stream bed. And right up over here, we're going to talk about this in just a minute, is the altar of the golden calf. Now that seems like a long distance, and it is, but this place is like an auditorium. And you can hear, when you're on top of the mountain, the car doors closing back here. They could hear us mumbling, and you could hear the car doors and the engine start. They said it was just crazy. So this is what the plain looks like, and there's more area back in here for the Israelites to encamp. There's another area, another way to get to the top of the mountain besides going right up above Moses' altar. It's a valley on the back side of the mountain called the Middle Valley. And there is a cave there too. And there's a possibility that this Middle Valley and this cave was actually the route Moses took to go up. And it does lead through the plain where the 70 elders were. So my friend Andrew discovered it, and the Middle Valley is there. There's a couple petroglyphs along the way. They found some archers surrounding the mountain to tell the people these petroglyphs, telling people not to come near the mountain. Don't touch the mountain. So those have been found as well. So this is the cave of Elijah. It's right above, a few hundred feet above the altar of Moses. And it's big enough for Elijah to crawl into, and it serves its purpose when Elijah went there when he was on the lam from Jezebel. This is the altar area. It's just fuzzy up here. The altar area of Moses' altar, uncut stone. This is what's left of it, untouched. They have actually found animal remains buried underneath in light excavation. But really, these are untouched. This has remained this way, people, for 3,500 years. And the 12 pillars here, and the animal chutes again. So my grandson took this picture, and this is at the top of one of the peaks before you get to Jabal Makla. It's a split rock, it's a cleft in the rock with a bush inside. he took the best picture of the day of the bush inside the cleft of the rock. So, go ahead.
So are we thinking that could be the burning bush?
We are thinking that. There's nothing else up there. There's no other living plants or anything up there. It's on the top. I'm not going to say it is, but it's a nice spot. On the way back from the altar area, back to our vehicles, my grandson, Alden, ran ahead of me, as he always did. And he ran in front of the whole team and got back to the area before anybody could get back there. And while he was there, he went up on a ledge and discovered a cave with petroglyphs that had never been discovered before. You just let a 12-year-old loose, and they will find everything. So this is known, even to this day, as Alden's Cave. And this is his cave that he discovered in there. And this is it. And if you look, these are some of the animal petroglyphs that were in that cave area. And this is a picture of the altar of the golden calf. This is a place, one of the worst places, the worst events in human history happened here. They built this altar, and what you want to find here is Egyptian petroglyphs. You want to find Egyptian paint. The Bible says, these, plural, are your gods, plural, O Israel. These are your gods, O Israel. And they are aphis bulls. You want to find those. The golden calf was not built solely out of gold. The gold that the Israelites used was the gold that they left Egypt with. In ancient Bedouin culture, if you were someone's slave, you were, and you wanted to stay with that slave master, you were given an earring or a nose ring. It was a point of possession. And it showed that you belonged to somebody. Before the Israelites left Egypt, God moved the hearts of the Egyptians to give them all their earrings and their other rings and their nose rings. So God put on the Israelites his mark for his people that comes from him, his gold on them. It was also repayment for the work that they had done and the children that they had lost. There always has to be a buyback. Firstborn sons were killed. The firstborn of Egypt was killed, and the army was killed. And the payback for the years of slavery. So the gold was a really important thing. It was a gift from Yah to these people. While Moses is on top of this mountain doing the marriage covenant, they are taking off their rings, building a false idol, and breaking that covenant before Moses even gets, well, what's going on? Right on top of the mountain. So they used the gold that the Father had given them for this purpose. And what they did is they took these rings and they made like a covering and covered it over a replica of wood for the golden calf. So there are different types of coverings. You'll want to find pictures of this here, if that's what this is. So do you? Yes, you do. This area has rooms in it for all kinds of lascivious behavior. And throughout these areas and around this entire structure are petroglyphs. You will find petroglyphs of cows. These are Egyptian cows. The lines are straight, they're covered with decoration. They look like aphis bulls. This is the red paint on the left there. This is only used by Egyptians coming out of Egypt. You want to find it. You want to find red paint because they just came. You want to find Egyptian things in this area, and you do. So you find the red paint, you find the aphis bulls, you find bull worship, you find aphis bulls, all different types of aphis bulls, And they are worshiping and suckling the bull. That's a form of worship in Egypt for the Aphis bulls. Aphis bulls are really important. They represented Pharaoh. An Aphis bull was made every time a Pharaoh was born, and it was then put in a hallway when the Pharaoh died. That's how we can count the years of the Pharaohs by the Aphis bulls. But they were considered Pharaoh himself and worshipable. So this petroglyph is at the altar of the golden calf, and you will find many bulls. This is the Hebrew letter Tet, and it means to surround. It's an ancient Hebrew letter. It's called a pictographic Proto-Canaanite script. This picture again with all the bulls, and then here. And they're different, and there's straight lines. These are not naturally made bulls, so you know there's bull worship going on here. So this is all around the altar of the golden calf. They actually have this area fenced off. We were let in by the Saudi police. If you start to dig there, they assume you're looking for gold. Oftentimes these were left as warnings for other generations of what happened there and to remember. We're going to get to what happened to the people that were disobedient and did not stand with Moses. There is evidence of that too as well. But they left a very clear record of what happened here. It's a very clear record. I went through this whole altar area, the rooms, everything. There's markings in and around this whole area. So this is the ancient graveyard. It's about 2.5 miles from Moses' altar. And they have found 3,000 ancient graves in this graveyard. This was the only place we were not allowed full access to by the Saudi government. We could take pictures from outside the cave, but Ryan took some pictures in April, I'm sorry. He got some better pictures for me, so go ahead. So you have these gravestones here. The interesting thing about this grave site is you can't see Mount Sinai from here. When you are out of the camp, you're out of sight. You're taken out. Either you're in the camp and you can see the mountain. This actually is sort of between the split rock at Horeb and Moses' altar. But the 3,000, you have to find a mass graveyard, and you do. You find a massive ancient graveyard with approximately 3,000 graves. After we finished at the altar of the golden calf, we were invited by the King of Saudi Arabia to Mt Sinai, which is the sister city to Petra. It was built by the Nabateans, and it is a spectacular site. So I would encourage you, if you ever get a chance to go to Mt Sinai, just stunning. The work is on par, if not greater than Petra. They put us up in a Bedouin camp, so we got to sleep and spend the night in a Bedouin camp, and that was, my grandson was thrilled about that one. We tented it for one night. So my friend Ryan, who runs Doubting Thomas, I always wonder why I was chosen to go there. I prayed about it for a long time, and the Father answered my prayer, and he had written this, and it's just such a lovely saying. I put it at the end, because God doesn't use the best or the most expected. Even Moses was so insecure, he didn't want the job. Rather than using the most qualified, the pattern is that God uses the unexpected, the insecure, the flawed, the depressed, the doubter, the underdog. Every single person can make a difference, especially those who think they can't. Ryan put that at the end of his video, so that is how I'm going to end my presentation, except I have a small 5-minute video that I made for my grandson. I thought you would enjoy, and I showed it at Sukkot. I'd like to share it with you, so go ahead.
us to a place. Guide us with your grace to a place where we'll be safe. I pray we'll find your love and hold it in our heart. When scars go out each night, remind us where you are. Let this be our prayer. When shadows fill our day. Oh Lord, lead us to a place of mine. Guide us with your grace. Guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be saved. A world where pain and sorrow will be ended, and every heart that's broken will be mended, and we'll remember we are God's children, reaching out to touch you, reaching to the sky. Another soul to love. Let this be our prayer. Just like every child. Needs to find a place. Guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be saved. Needs to find a place. Guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be
Okay, if you want, she has 5 slides on her from her presentation of Egypt. It would be 5 minutes. Are you willing to hang loose for 5 more minutes? Trust me when I say the 5 slides are worth the 5 minutes. Can you pull us up? Okay.
So before I went to Saudi Arabia, I had a chance to travel down the Nile, through the Sahara, and go through every single pagan temple in Egypt, and across Egypt, across the Sinai to Nuweiba Beach, and up into Jordan, and cross over into Jordan through the Allenby Bridge into Israel. So it was quite a spectacular trip. But while I was in Egypt, people forget that Egypt is part of the Promised Land, and it housed Abraham, it housed Joseph, it housed Moses, and it housed Messiah. So you can't negate Egypt. So I do a presentation. I teach at my Messianic Fellowship in Delaware. So I did this teaching, and some of these slides are from this teaching. So it's Egypt and the Patriarchy. This is the city of Mems. It's the capital of ancient Egypt. Moses, Abraham, Sarah, Joseph, the 12 sons, and Yeshua walked this street. And it's a fabulous city. And it's a small city, but it united northern and southern Egypt. So this is on the right here. This is the water wheel that Joseph built. Joseph's plan to save Egypt from the famine was to build a canal. As the Nile flows up, it flows northern. It's the only river in the world that does it. He built a canal off of the Nile that ran up, and it emptied into a low place in the Sahara Desert about an hour south of a city of Cairo, in a city called Fayoum, Egypt. It's interesting too that in this city of Fayoum, at this canal, it creates 1 million additional arable green land for Egypt to grow more grain. To this day, the lake that's created from this canal is called the Lake of Joseph's Sea by locals. Along the canal they have found 10,000 storage grain facilities that are still unexcavated. Discovery Channel did a documentary on them, did the sound penetrating radar. And next to the grain storage facilities is the pyramid of Amenemhat, who is on the new Egyptian time line, suspected to be the Pharaoh of Joseph. So he built his pyramid next to the canal, next to the storage gains. So the picture on the right is taken near Saqqara, Egypt. This is the jail of Joseph. They found the pyramid of Amenemhat, or not the pyramid, I'm sorry, the palace of Amenemhat. It was built on top of this rock cliff structure here. And scripture says Joseph was brought up out of the jail. The cupbearer was brought up out of the jail. And they determined that this particular area right here is where the jail of Joseph was. Of course, I'm snapping as the bus is going along. Joseph managed this jail. He was an educated prisoner where nobody else was. Also, through the pagan temples up the Nile, there is evidence of the Canaanites and the Israelites in Egypt. Here you're going to see, this is on the walls of Karnak. We know that these are Canaanite Hebrew men because of the haircut. They were the only ones in that society that wore that kind of haircut. And if you look very carefully right here, they're bound by their elbows, not by their wrists. Very painful. And I have several pictures of these, but this is on the wall of Karnak. This one is the Pharaoh Mereneptah. Whenever you see a mummy, it's leathery and dark and looks really kind of just like a polished leather. Tutankhamun is like that, Seti is like that. This mummy isn't that way because he is projected to be the Pharaoh of Moses, of the plagues.
Explain how you identified him. You saw all of them walking in.
In the Egyptian Museum, they have a room called the Royal Chambers. And in the Royal Chambers, they have probably 20, 30 Pharaoh mummies buried or enshrined in this museum. It's spectacular, but you can't take pictures. And I knew that Mereneptah was probably the Pharaoh of the Exodus. And I knew his mummy was different because he drowned in salt water. And the Mereneptah stele even gives documentation of the plagues in Egypt. But when I walked into the royal chambers, not being able to take pictures, I was able, out of the 30 mummies lying there, I was able to look across the room. I identified him because it's an ashen gray. And that's what happens when you drown in salt water. So the preservation process of mummifying normally would leave you dark and leathery. This is ashen gray. It's the only pharaoh like that drowned in salt water. And somebody asked me, they brought his body back? Yes, they did. You would not go back to Egypt without your dead pharaoh. You dare not. So they went in and got his body. And Egypt was never able to recover, ever, from that day, from the plagues. And ending the trip in Egypt, the Pillar of Solomon that was placed at Nuweiba Beach, where Solomon marked the spot of the crossing of the Red Sea. There was a pillar on the Saudi side that has been torn out by the Saudis, and there's a pile of rocks there. But this one still stands in Nuweiba Beach as a marker, as a remembrance for what happened here. And this is the Wadi Watir, where the Israelites came through and the pillar of fire stood to protect the Israelites on the beach. And this beach is about 4 to 5 miles long, so it would hold the Israelites. So, and that is where I finished in Egypt. So I just thought I'd share.
Amen. Amen.